Hello, Indi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. Just about time to
I
talk.
know. I'm so sorry. It's been crazy around here.
Talk me about the green air because
Oh,
I know that you have fire everywhere, and things are not that.
yeah, this is the first day that we've had breathable air since mid-August, I think. Yeah,
Gosh.
yeah. So,
Uh,
and
but
it's
but but it's important to say that we don't have any climate change. Ironic.
right,
I'm
right.
sorry.
I know. Exactly. My parents are under the sway of this anti everything government, and
Uh-huh.
they're like, oh well, it's not climate change. It's not that it's so dry that nothing is decomposing anymore. My chair is stuck. It's that it used to be that people used to go out into the forests and the canyons and cut down all the underbrush. And I'm like, really? Who are those people? They
Yeah.
were there in the background. I'm like, no, no, they weren't. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I think it's time to rethink everything.
Yes, yes, I think so. I mean, everybody is affected, so we need to do something about it. Um, yeah. Anyway,
Uh,
so
it has been a long time since we see saw each other,
uh huh,
and I remember the first time I saw your workshop at one of the IXDA things,
uh huh,
conferences
uh huh.
back in
Yeah,
2009,
was
and
it
since then,
2009? Yeah. Wow.
yeah, wow, time flies. And since then, since the moment I got in touch with your work, I began to teach mental models, which is, to be honest, not easy because I'm not you. Um, we have to reverence our masters.
I've made it easier.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but this was one of the main reasons I brought you here because I've been teaching for a long time, and all of my students use this methodology, which I know, yeah, which I
That's great.
know it's uncommon. Now that we have this explosion of online courses, I see that more and more people come and teach without any, I'm sorry, any background.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, user research they do wrong.
Hmm.
Yeah, and they teach wrong
Hmm.
because they do wrong because they never had the opportunity to learn
Hmm.
in academia.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I would like to know from you, from your experience, how come this crazy idea of writing a book appeared? Because I know that you are co-founder of AdaptivePath, that I had the opportunity to know back in I don't know how many years I've been in California, and I knew AdaptivePath, and I knew that you were very successful. Um, and yet you found time to write a book, which is crazy. Tell me about
I actually had to quit my work at AdaptivePath to write the book. It
it.
was,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it was my 5-year anniversary, 5 years since we started the company. And I'm like, okay, you guys get it. I was one of the two people who had a lot of experience with consulting. So I kind of led the consulting end of things. And I really want to write this book. So bye. Because they were doing fine. And so I wrote the book, but the book, I signed up with Rosenfeld Media, and he was just getting going. It was actually the first Rosenfeld Media book. I was not the first book in development. He had a lot of authors writing first books for him. Mine just happened to be the first one out the gate, but he was still building the process. So it took me 9 months to write the book, and then it took him another 9 months to actually publish it. Because, there were things we didn't know. I remember him talking to me about, well, like, where are we going to get it printed that isn't going to be, like, bad for the environment? Like there's apparently, when you send something to China to be printed, it's like put on a ship, and the ship is a big printing house, and it just dumps all of its waste into the sea. I had no idea. I'm not sure. I just heard this from Lou. I have not researched it at all, so I'm not sure if that's true. But he's all like, I don't want to do that. I want to, print it sustainably, because I'm going to be putting objects into the world. Whereas, if we're putting digital into the world, we have to worry about energy for certain. And we have to worry about hard drives and how those get recycled for certain. But we don't have to worry about like waste going to the bottom of the sea, unless that's where they're putting the hard drives, which could be. So he was, going through all of that, trying to make these decisions. He did find a publisher somewhere in Michigan, at least at first. I don't know where he is now, or a printer somewhere in Michigan who was doing it more sustainably, which is really cool. But we had to find illustrators. We had to find this. We had to find that. And he was just, he was doing all that. So,
but the thing is, you caught the eye on a subject which is not trivial. I see that people find it easy to create a journey because it's actually a storytelling that you are trying to organize on the wall.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's mural or mural, but you're on a virtual. But when we talk about mental models, we are talking about a different object. And why mental models?
Yeah. So I actually started mental models back in 1994. I had attended a local, do you know the group CHI, Computer Human Interaction? Yeah. We had a local group, and I had attended a meeting, and there was a professor from Stanford, whose name I've completely forgotten now, who was talking about kind of the layers of interface. This was really similar to what Jesse James Garrett came out with later in his book. But the base layers went into code, and I came from a computer science background, so I got all excited about the connection to the code or the layers, the way that he explained them. And so I concentrated on that one layer that was super close, which was, in his parlance, tasks, the little discrete bits that people are trying to get done. And we were just at that time doing the switching over from making software for other scientists and engineers to making software for like people who don't normally use computers, because now personal computers were coming out in the world. They had been out for a little while, so it wasn't the beginning of the switch. It was way into it. But so I'm like, let's figure out the tasks, the discrete bits that people are trying to get done. But I want to understand them from their point of view. I was working for Visa International, and they had a call center. And in that call center were a whole bunch of reps who would take calls from around the world. There were like, I think they told me there were 12 languages being spoken at every minute on the floor, because they tried to have speakers from all different languages. 12 is not going to cover it all, but apparently it covered enough for that bank to make that number stick. But I'm like, all right, let me go listen to these people. I have to be here and listen to these people one-on-one to try to find out what their tasks are. And then I made a task model. It was actually a state machine, because that's the only tool I had coming from computer science. So I made a state machine of people, which was like sort of ironic and humorous, and a sad beginning for where we are now, where we're all about trying to represent inner thinking, guiding principles, and emotional reactions. That's not a state machine. So it's really morphed over time. But the beginning was, hey, I want to understand people from their point of view. And then I think the second half of it was everybody that I had worked with and everybody at AdaptivePath and all of my clients before and after AdaptivePath and during AdaptivePath were really interested in the fact that this kind of data sticks around. It isn't a usability test where it's valid for the month that before you make those changes that are indicated. Yeah. And it was before journey maps came out. So people were interested in its linearity. I think they wanted it to be a journey map. They didn't understand that it was purely from a person's point of view, not as a user, but as a person trying to accomplish a purpose. And those reps in that Visa Center, they used software, but they also used atlases. They also used each other. They also used fax machines. Okay, this was the 90s. We didn't have Google Maps then. And they talked to each other about trying to, like, I've got a person in the same part of the city that needs a car that you were in. How did you do that delivery again? Because that was a hard one, I remember. And the other rep would talk. And so that was the part that just isn't being captured with respect to just a piece of software, right? Because it was a green screen piece of software that they wanted to replace. Anyway, so that's kind of where it came from. And then my second book is a rewrite, a more humanizing version of the first book, Mental Models. The second book is Practical Empathy. So even from its title, you can tell. And then my third book is going to be about thinking styles, which is making it even more focused on the different approaches people have to the same purpose, and the fact that we are right now creating solutions that are for like a mythical average user. And it doesn't really help anyone in particular. And I want our solutions to help certain patterns in particular. There are patterns in the way that people are thinking as they approach their purpose. And I can make those patterns into thinking styles, and then we can make some software and services that support different thinking styles that are differentiated by thinking style.
One thing that I believe that it helps a lot, it's on information architecture. Most of the time, I use it as a help for most people to understand what they have to offer and how they have to make the whole hierarchies when they are talking about things. And what I find really interesting is that most people have the intuition that they have to use in mental models, but they don't make the statement, or they don't know the methodology to do so. So what is your experience with that?
I think people, there's a bigger story around this. In the beginning, when I first did a mental model that was layered together with what an organization was trying to do in support of those towers in the city skyline, I was working with another partner, and after I did that presentation for the client that we both had, he turns to me, in the taxi going back to the airport, and he's like, "Oh my God, that is amazing! You've got to patent it, and set it up as courses and materials, and make it go worldwide." And my intuition was no, I need to set this free. I need to let people all get it. I need to accept that people are going to do it differently. And I can actually learn from the ways people do it differently. In fact, one of the people that I have worked with in the past, Lad Decker, was interested in putting more words into the boxes in that city skyline. And and she convinced me that it was important to put more words in there because it was the person's voice, which is how it morphed into what it is now. It is, with practical empathy, it is literally the voice of that person, or the blending of voices if there are several people saying exactly the same thing. But trying to keep it unique and bringing a bit of their detail and context in as well, so that as we're using this, we can relate to people. We can get out of our own perspective. I think that's the biggest problem we face, is that we forget that we make assumptions, and we forget that our own experience is limited. It's just this experience. And sure, we have maybe a diversity of people on the team, but they all have limited experiences, and we don't have the experience of all the people that we're trying to support. So we have to do research. So back to the taxi, that guy's all like, yeah, you know, you gotta patent it and put it together in little course materials and sell it that way. I think that's the direction that people in jobs to be done have gone. Right? I don't know that you have to pay to use jobs to be done, but certainly it has become this big consulting gig sort of thing. Whereas I wanted it to be something that everybody could use. So that's why I wrote the book. The first book and the second book, and now the third book, and now the courses. I want everybody to have it. And in fact, like, with respect to that, with respect especially with a Brazilian audience, the courses that I'm teaching, and that you and I may end up having an exciting announcement about soon, I sell them at different price points, and people can pick their price point. And there are 2 price points in there for people who have really bad currency exchange rates with the US dollar. So this means I get people from Brazil in my courses. I get people from India, from Ukraine, from Siberia, from Malaysia, from all these places that, you know, they're facing the same things that we are in the US, but so far the US has only thought, well, you know, here's our price. And the other day, Mike Monteiro, if you know of him and Erica Hall at Mule Design, he noticed the way that I was doing the pricing. He's like, oh my God, can I adopt that? Can I do that myself? Which I thought was hilarious because he was asking me permission. I'm like, yes, of course you can. I want that to spread too.
Okay. Good to know, because I was doing without any, you know, because I'm a professor and then and a consultant. So I felt that it was my duty, as you point out, that more people would preparing people to be able to use was my duty. And I'm glad that we are aligned, because I did it anyway.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, I want more and more people to do it and to change it and use it the way that works for them as well. I think that there are some basic things that, like you said, they're very different than journey maps. And the most basic thing is that we're looking at people as people. We're not looking at people necessarily as users of our products. And so much of the work that we do is through the lens of our organization. Like, our organization is trying to do X. And so we're going to look at people through that lens and focus in on people. And that really limits how we see people. So what I do is I'm like, okay, yeah, that's useful for when we're in the solution space. But I want to work in the problem space instead. I'm going to set aside the solution space for maybe a few weeks a year, and really concentrate on the problem space, maybe every other year. It depends on how big a team you have. And the deal with this kind of data is that since it's not related to a usability test, it's long-lived, you can keep adding to it year over year over year. And so I've had people telling me stories about how they've been adding to it and how they've been building on it, which is fabulous. And so that's as they're doing that, they're teaching me how they're using it within their own organization, whether it's a university or the government or a small consulting firm, or, you know, a large enterprise. They're telling me how they're using it and adapting it.
What I think it's most difficult for my students is to understand that we are not talking about something that have a chronology. It is not a journey with beginning or end, is the way you think. And I don't know, sometimes it takes me a lot of time to take them out of this, you know, the easy path.
Yeah.
The easy path. You're thinking, you're saying about the brain and people. They are not always consumers. They are people. Think about them and etc. But I think that most of the students and people inside the companies are so tired with the idea of my customers. Oh my God. And they
Right.
are humans.
Right, exactly. But what traction do we have? So that's what I've been focused on a lot lately, is giving people ways to get traction within their orgs, because their orgs are all like spinning along really fast, you know, making incremental improvements, failing fast, you know, doing these journey maps and really focused on solutions. And I think that it's very hard to convince stakeholders to pause and do this. So what I've been concentrating on is trying to help people. I've written a whole bunch of essays on my Medium's publication, Inclusive Software, and I've been trying to teach it in one of the courses, like how, actually kind of all the courses I touch on it, because everybody always asks, how do I get people to do this? How do I convince my stakeholders to do this? And one of the things is to understand your stakeholders. So yeah, do listening sessions with your stakeholders, understand where their guiding principles are, and understand also that they have come from a history, and in their history, they probably learned one way to do it, and they're being judged according to that one way. And so to ask them to do another way where they're not judged and they don't see the value right away, obviously they're not going to be that interested in it. So the point is to understand that and make relationships with people. Build trust. The only way you can build trust is to build relationships. I think any salesperson would know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. And as a consultant, you know it better.
Maybe.
But tell me about the practical empathy and the next book, because I now am like, you know, on The Devil Wears Prada, where the main character asks for the copy of the book before it,
Yes.
you know, I want it the same way.
Exactly. So Practical Empathy was, it came out in 2015, and I also narrated it in English. So if there's anybody who wants to translate it or narrate it in another language, I am inviting you to do that. I actually have the rights for the Audible versions of it. So anybody who wants to do that, it has been translated to Chinese. But anyway, that's an object, right? The concept behind it was like, hey, let's put more of the person and the person's approach into the mental model diagram. And remember those behavioral audience segments from the mental model diagrams? Let's dig down into that a little bit more, and let's start layering that into the mental model diagram, so that when we're doing the gap analysis, part of our gap analysis is like, oh, you know what? In this tower, all the things that are going on, we've got 3 different thinking styles. And in our solution, we're only supporting 1.5 of those thinking styles. We're sort of geared to one of them, and we're kind of by accident supporting half of another thinking style, and we're not even paying attention to that third thinking style. So suddenly, there was a really big enterprise org that is now using that to measure, to take their usability tests, to use that to guide how they're doing their usability tests, so that their usability tests are now starting to pay more attention to who, and then taking the values of those and layering those back into the towers. So there's like a little monitor. They're using happy faces, sad faces, but you can use whatever you want, to tell stakeholders, like, how are we doing with respect to this area? And moreover, how are we doing with respect to our different thinking styles? So I'm making it up a little bit here. They're only doing it with one thinking style right now. They haven't done it with multiples. And so the next book is going to be really pushing on that. I think that our future really depends on us paying attention to differences and supporting those differences, not asking everybody to work like us. My favorite example is an airline. And if you've ever made a reservation for an airline, it's basically the airline saying, hey, you guys, we have planes and they fly between airports. So pick some airports and some dates and we'll tell you which planes to hop on, which is exactly their business model. And it has nothing to do with a person trying to get to another place. I did 18 months worth of studies. We did like 8 studies really fast back to back for an airline. And we found 4 different thinking styles in passengers. And first of all, no one's supporting one of them at all, because
Of course.
everybody at the airline thinks the passengers are idiots.
With
So,
money.
yeah,
Idiots with money.
idiots with money. And so, we're just going to treat them like idiots, and they're just grumpy and whiny. And anyway, one of the thinking styles is a frustrated. And that was the word. They wanted to call them the grumbler. And I'm all like, no, first of all, because they're probably grumbling when they're in traffic, and they're grumbling at their kids when their kids don't do their homework. They're just grumblers. I'm like, no. This is not a personality. It is a thinking style that happens to be like a hat that you put on when you're in a certain context and certain things have happened and your way of thinking shifts. Often that way of thinking, that shift happens over time. Maybe your interactions and the way that you work with one of these, right? That would happen over time. But with an airline, it happens by trip. And you may have a trip where you're totally laid back and unfazed, but then you may have a trip where you get really frustrated because things aren't going the way you planned, right? So this is a thinking style. That's one of the most important parts about a thinking style, is it is not a personality. It is not a horoscope, right?
Yes. Well, I know. And one of the things that you said, it's something that I did intuitively, because I work with ethnography a lot. And I said, okay, now that we interviewed this bunch of people, let's find the clusters or the main drivers that put them together, and this was it was interesting, because it seems to me that we are aligned.
Yeah. I just saw a book come out by someone Supermanian. I forget his first. I just put it on my books list, which is on my new website. I think you have to go to indiyoung.com/books, and then there's recommended reading. And he comes from Carnegie Mellon. And he's got something similar too going on. And I just love it. I tweeted it yesterday. I just love that. I think I posted it on LinkedIn too, that from all these different places, everywhere around the globe, there are people who are coming to the same conclusion, that we really have to pay more attention to the differences of people. And I think, going back to our stakeholders, if you are in university to become someone in business, you're not taught about qualitative data. You are not taught about inductive or abductive reasoning. And so those are
No.
not tools in their head. And what we're doing is abductive, and it is qualitative, and that by its mere foreignness is weird to them, but also it sounds unverifiable. You say patterns, you know, how can I rely on this? I want to rely on numbers. And it's just because it's foreign, it's unknown to them. And so part of what I'm helping people do is talk about, like, there's a lot of different ways to do research. And what is research? Research is gathering knowledge. It is just building knowledge. So what knowledge do you need? And then let's choose the right tool for that knowledge. So let's talk instead about, like, let's doing research in cycles or something. Let's instead talk about what knowledge do you need? And let's be a little bit more clear-eyed about what it is that we need right now. And part of what we need right now is not only to understand where we're failing, but why we're failing. What is it that people are trying to get done?
Yeah, this is crucial. And I believe that this moment, which is, I think it's a very reflective moment, because we have to stay at home. We see everything changing around us. Everything is aggressive, because now we see that nature's revenge is coming.
Yes.
In many ways, that challenge us. So we have
and those people who want to run away to Mars, I'm like, okay, whatever, but we've got to fix this here. Anyway, go ahead.
They might run, but the problem will be with them, because the guys that are running, they are not fixers, and we need to fix.
Yes. I love the way you put that.
They're running because they don't fix. And the way to fix is together, with empathy, learning from I always say to my clients, you are now learning another culture. It doesn't matter that they speak Portuguese or Spanish or whatever. When you're doing an interview with someone, first of all, you're borrowing another planet, because this person is another planet, universe, I don't know, something really big that you don't know. People have these assumptions. I'm 60 years old, Indi, and I am a consultant, a professor, etc. And of course, they believe that I have to drive a sedan, and I actually love sports cars.
Right?
So, I am a complete different thing that they believe that I am. So this is.
I think that's actually you, and the complete differenceness of your personality, I think, is a key component of doing this kind of work. I think that we attract the attention of the people who have a similar sort of, like, I'm okay being different. I don't need to, like, follow the method and get my golden coins so that I can, do whatever. I'm different, and I'm willing to look at things differently. And I think that's key. One of the ways that I help people learn how to listen is to think about really young children, toddlers, we call them. And that point where they are always asking you why. How do you say why in Portuguese?
¿Por qué?
¿Por qué? Right? Similar to Spanish. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? And at some point, you're going to say, because I said so, because it's just too exhausting to answer everything.
I have no answer for that. No. That's why.
Exactly. So that toddler, it isn't that you ask por qué like 5 times. They're like, oh, let's have a rule where you ask por qué 5 times. I'm like, no. That's not the point. The point is that the toddler's not afraid to act as if they don't know. And we have been taught throughout our careers to have answers or to figure out how to get answers. And so we hide when we don't know. So one of my clients early on, I remember this in 2000, she told me at the end of our engagement, she said, you know, the best thing about working with you, I'm like, what? She says, it's that you say I don't know.
You're human. It's so good that you're human.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So this thing about toddlers is that they aren't embarrassed about it yet. They aren't embarrassed about not knowing. And the rest of us are a little bit embarrassed about not knowing. And so that key to your personality is like, I can be different. Different is good. That's fine. And I think part of that is also like, I'm interested, I'm curious, and people will like embrace curiosity. Oh yeah, I'm curious too. But with curiosity has to be that lack of embarrassment about not knowing.
And not knowing and trying stuff that you never did before.
Yeah.
Because what I see, I don't know if you're seeing this pattern in the US too. A lot of people are changing careers. They are, not early when they are
Right.
in their 20s. They are doing this this new career path, and when they are turning 40, 50.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they know they are bored. They already have the children on school, so now they can do what they want.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they are so embarrassed because they have to do something new that they don't know. It's like you can't make a mistake because you're a grown-up. And I
Right.
don't know about the others, but I still do a lot of mistakes.
Uh-huh.
The only good thing is that every day I do a mistake in a different place.
Oh, I make them in the same place several times first, and then I learn.
Then I learn. Anyway, yeah, let's keep it just between you and me because
Right.
it's true.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually part of the books that are going to come out and part of the courses. So the courses, I was going to actually write a second edition for the first book. And it ended up being a complete rewrite. And the publishers are all like, A
Really?
or B? Yeah.
Really?
Like, okay. let me just, so I turned it into courses. And the courses taught me, because of all the people asking questions, taught me how to teach it better and more clearly. And it also taught me that, you know what, because so many people are changing careers, and because not everybody has the millions of dollars that, it's not millions, but the amount of money that it takes to go and get an advanced degree or even a degree, they're taking these short courses. They're taking these little cohorts. They're doing these things that are cheaper, that get them out so they can have a job and earn money, because they're not 19 and able to live more cheaply or off their parents, right? So I need to get to that job where I'm getting paid quickly. So, you know, do I go the university route when I'm this age? And I may not have the money saved up for it, or may not qualify for a loan. Maybe I have too much money and I can't qualify for a loan. But I don't have enough money to like take that much time off. Yeah, all that stuff, right? So what I'm trying to do is recognize that, and recognize that people are soaking up information. They are learning like people have never learned before, except in university areas. And I'm so impressed with the way people are learning that way. However, some of the things that they're soaking up, like you referred to earlier, are not, they're not quality material. And so what I want to do is teach people, give them the openness of mind to recognize that some of this material sometimes doesn't match other material. And what does that mean? it means probably that one piece of material is not well written or not well researched or doesn't come from a platform that is grounded in the past, like in grounded theory. What I'm doing is grounded theory. I actually didn't get to go to grad school. I never heard of grounded theory until I was doing mental model diagrams, because it came out of computer science for me. So it's slightly different, but it is grounded theory. So the idea that when things don't match, you can now question it, right? And you can say, oh, well, what's what? And then follow up on it, because we've got the tools to do it. We've got Google. We can search through it and like look at some of these papers, most of which are really hard to read, but you can at least read the abstract and go like, there's something here that maybe isn't the same as what that person in that article or in that class, that master class that's like for 6 hours. And so maybe we gain that ability to keep learning, to keep questioning. And I think that's actually, I have great faith in humanity because of who I see doing this. And people who can't go to the university route, they're doing an amazing job with these tools. And just being able to expose them to a little bit more, that's what they're doing. And then they're starting to learn about differences. They can start to smell maybe or sense when something that somebody wrote with so much authority, it isn't just the authority, it's the history. It's what it's based on. What is its foundation? Where does it come from, right?
Yeah. For me, the main point is that most people don't follow the methodology, and the methodology exists for one reason. If there is one reason, it's because if you want to reproduce success, if you have a recipe, you follow all the things and you say, okay, I failed. Well, let me see on the recipe, where did I fail?
Yeah. Although when you get to a certain point, you can start altering the recipe.
Yeah.
Yes. You're like, oh, I've got people here who can't do spicy food, so I'm going to change it a little bit, right? And come up with the next thing. I mean, there's people out there right now who are coming up with the next methodology by using and learning the methodologies that we have and the history behind them. I think that if you come up with a methodology that's not based on history or concepts that have come already, what is it, right? Maybe it's really cool. I'm not going to judge it. Maybe it's an amazing leap of cognition, but maybe it's just somebody who wants to patent something and make money off of it.
And it's okay. And I say what I say, but it's okay. And what I see is that you have an audience for everything, and at some point you become more critic and more picky with the stuff, and then you say, okay, now next level, next step. I want to see something from a higher perspective, something.
Exactly. I think that we'll all get there together. We have to, because otherwise it's just going to be those guys on Mars.
No. Although it's okay, they are going to Mars. Bye. Yeah. But yeah.
Of course, about my courses.
I would love to hear about them. I saw the moment you put them on air, and I followed them through your emails and so on and so forth for a long time. And then I told myself, because my life was on a complete turmoil. I was an executive. By the time you put that on air, I was working for a big company. and I didn't have time to think, breathe.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I was doing more and more politics. Oh,
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah.
Boring.
I know. Actually, I loved being a consultant because it, to me, protected myself from politics. But now that I've gotten this far in my career, I'm like, you know what? Actually, the politics are where it's at, because really it's relationship building in a way. It's trust building. It's forging connections with people and tossing ideas across those connections. And I think that that's what, you know, the idea of not being embarrassed about what you don't know and being able to do something new every day, it, I think, extends to the ideas really well. If you're able to accept a new idea and say, oh, wow, that's new, and instead of judging it immediately, I was raised saying all these horrible things about my parents, whom I love, and they're amazing, and people love them, but quite judgmental. Instant judgment of things. And so part of what I have instilled in myself is a sensitivity to judgment, especially when I'm doing it. So, yeah, I want to make sure that I am not that person instantly judging. And I think that that's part of what happens when we get to that point. Then new ideas are like not instantly thrown away or like, oh, that's never going to work, right? It's like, well, let's explore this for a little while. It's especially true of me and my partner. Because when we're doing things around the house and trying to get projects done, it's like I've got this idea in my head how I'm going to do it, and my partner will say, "Well, you know, what about doing it this way?" And I'm like, "No, that'll take too long." And then I'm like, "Indi." But it's taken me 20 years to get to this point.
Okay.
Right? So the same thing occurs in work. You're working there and making judgments every day about concepts that you hear, ideas that people are coming up with. And business historically has been quite hierarchical. You do what your boss says. Your boss gets to make the decision. You get to grumble about it. There is a chance that we can get more collaborative. I'm a big science fiction reader, and there's an author. His name is Kim Stanley Robinson, and he actually wrote a book, a series of books about Mars and about people going there and terraforming it and all of this sort of thing. So I get it. But the thing that he does in all of his books, he also has one about California, like 3 different parallel universe Californias. And at first I didn't like it. It's very collaborative. His people work together. And he always in his books has 1 or 2 people who are very much, they like to be alone. And I'm more of that alone type of person. And so the collaborative part of it and the politics part of it and the relationship part of it, I'm all like, yeah, that's for those characters. But now at this point in my career, I'm like, oh, you know what? Actually, I can do that. I can do that, and it can be fun because I really like listening to people. And I really like trying to recognize in what they're saying, whether they're at surface or whether they're at depth. And when I can get them to speak at depth, what is their inner thinking? What are those guiding principles? Where did they come from? What are they trying to make progress on? Jared Spool is actually talking about, instead of purpose, he says, you know, progress. Somebody wants to make progress on a purpose. It's a great word. So the idea is that maybe this other side of things is something that I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to in the upcoming decades. So yeah,
I like the idea of decades, because I think that's the exact same way. The decades.
Yeah.
I say that I will last
Yes.
for a long time.
Yes. In those books, those science fiction books, the characters actually have some sort of a rejuvenation where they last for 200, 300, 400 years. And they have like, oh, this career is kind of coming to an end, and I'm going to take a decade or two off and learn something new, or maybe rest and then figure out what I want to do next. And then I start a new career. It's like, wow, what a concept.
Yeah, well, I'm still a consultant in UX, but I'm starting a new career as a coach, a career coach.
Right
Because
on.
because I think that my experience can help a lot of people. I made 3 transitions, 3 career transitions. So I have a lot of experience on pain.
I laugh in pain.
Yeah, I laugh a bit. Yeah, and now I can when I see people saying, the when they prepare the phrase and there is a path there, and you say, okay, I can help you
Right.
right away, because I know what they are thinking,
Yeah.
and what they are feeling.
Yeah, exactly. That is cool. That's a very cool path to start, especially at this time in your life when you have so much experience. Yeah. I have an interesting story. I like this. It's tangential, but what you said just made me think of this. This was another situation where a friend of mine was going through a divorce, and her mother, and she was not on good terms with her mother. Her mother was a high school teacher, so knew me because I was in her high school class, right? So she reached out to me. She says, my daughter is not speaking to me, and I've been through 2 divorces, and I know what's going on for her. So I want to get on the phone with her and give her some help, right? And it was interesting because I was like, well, crap, what do I do now? Because what she has just said is not empathic listening. Empathic listening is recognizing that another person's experience has led to the state that they're in right now and the thinking that they're having right now. And it's not your experience. So in empathic listening, you actually drop that and you just try to follow the other person. It's not coaching. It's not coaching at all. Coaching is a whole different thing. But it was interesting because I'm like, okay, do I tell my friend's mom that she's not being empathic? That my friend just needs somebody to listen and hear her words? Or do I not say anything? I don't know.
Well,
it's interesting because I mean, I think when somebody's going through a divorce, they don't want their mom coaching them.
no, I have a daughter. She's 32, and she's doing a career change. And I told her, I know a lot of people that can help you because I am not the person for that job.
Right.
I'm your mom.
Exactly. Very
I
smart.
told her. Yeah. I don't want to fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise I'll hear, why is that, ma'am? Yeah, you can't say that to me.
Right.
And if she's doing that with a coach, paying and everything, that will be fine.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Let me say something and apologize to the audience because I don't know why they couldn't send me comments and ask questions. So I apologize to you. Yeah, I don't know what happened on the whole stuff, but I think that since I know that most of the audience are my former students, I think that we covered it all. And if they want to blame someone, it's me. Sorry, people. I did a mistake that I don't know what it was or whatever. But
Technology.
I don't know. I have no idea what I did. So learning from mistakes. If you have any questions, please send to me and I will ask you. But I think that we covered a lot of things. And every time I teach this class, I refer to your book. So all of them on your book, and they have to endure and learn, because they are like, oh my God, I have a headache, you know. They are like that with the whole stuff.
Well,
But it's
hopefully the practical empathy would be, I tried to write that one with developers in mind. So people who are not doing research and don't understand research, so that it's a little bit more, I hope, approachable. I don't know.
yeah, and I think that it's a surprise for most people, the whole research thing, on because people think that it's just about. I think that most of the time people think about the work under their perspective and not the other people perspective.
Right.
Which I think this is the main shock when you read mental models.
Yeah.
Because you really have to pay attention to the other person.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. I mean, why are we building things? We're not building things for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're here for during this hour. I couldn't see the minutes go by. So thank you, Indi, for your time and patience. And I would like to apologize to the audience and thank everybody to listen. And if you have any questions, please send to my WhatsApp, and I will send it to you and give them the answer back.
Yeah,
so
if you guys want some references, indiyoung.com is my website, and medium.com/inclusive software, and it's inclusive-software. That has a ton of stuff. Both of those places have a ton of stuff, recorded talks. Learn more, dive in. I know y'all are really good at learning. If other people that I've met are any indication, so hopefully that helps. And you may want to know when the next book is coming out. Right now, I think we're going to begin writing it in me and my editor in January, but we made that plan before COVID, so. I'm hoping it'll be out next year. I've been promising this for years now, but at least the course exists, and the course is available right now if you want to watch the recordings, or it is coming up again, I think in May or something, if you want to do it live. So
okay,
yeah,
I'll send to everybody the links and everything. Okay. And I use that on my classes, so make sure you will see a lot of students.
You already know it.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Yay! Awesome.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I will end the broadcast, and we will keep for a minute. Okay.
Sounds great.
Bye. Bye.